Shalom uvracha. This evening we study together the weekly section of Torah, Parashat Vayigash. The section we're in, we read of how the family of Jacob once again is reunited under the auspices of the goodwill of Joseph. And one of the sentences which we read this week speaks about Joseph's kindness to his brothers, where he provides provisions for the entire family. Anyone who studied Vayigash remembers there's a detailed list of the many family members that travel with Jacob. And then we study Vayichalkel Yosef et aviv ve'et echav ve'et kol beit aviv. Joseph sustained his father and his brothers and all the family members of his father, lechem lefi hataf. He gave each one food in accordance with the young children. Food according to the children. What does that mean? It already says that he provided provisions for his father and his brothers, the entire household of his father. And then the Torah adds the words lechem lefi hataf. Bread, food, in accordance with the number of children, according to the children. So there's an entire literature in rabbinic literature. There are those who even want to read it into Rashi, although I'm not sure it's explicitly in Rashi. Some of the super commentaries on Rashi want to suggest that this is what he meant also. Mizrahi and others. That there seems to be two ways to feed people. You could feed people the amount of food that's necessary for their consumption, the amount of food that they need to enjoy their food. But if you're feeding people who are blessed to have children, then you have to take into consideration that which Joseph taught us. And this is very, very, very basic idea. And I think it's a true teaching. That has to be a living teaching for all parents in the world. Parents to be anyone who has an understanding of children. The Midrash says, Yosef understood that I can't just give the children a portion of food. Because if you give a child a portion of food, a great deal of that portion of food does not end up in their mouth. It ends up maybe on the floor, on the table, on the ceiling, on the walls. So Yosef, he overestimated the amount of food provisions because he took into consideration lechem lefi hataf, understanding the nature of children. Says the Midrash, lechem lefi Midrash Hagadol, lechem lefi hataf shehu mevazbez yoter mimashu ochel. Because often the child, especially young children, when they're eating, often that which they don't eat in their plate is more than the amount of food that they do eat in their plate. And there are many parents. May God bless all the parents, and may all parents be blessed with love and patience. But there are many parents that are so disturbed. Look, you fell on the floor. What are you doing with the food? So I think a good proof text to teach all the children is, what do you want from me, Abba and Ima? I'm a student of Joseph, and Joseph taught us lechem lefi hataf. It's the nature of children. That's the way children are, right? Midrash Leketov, yoter mima shehatinok ochel mifarer. More than the child consumes, he turns the crumbs and he throws around. So if that's the nature of children, Yosef understood when trying to calculate how much food to give their families, he took into consideration the special needs of children. And I believe that this is a basic lesson, not just in terms of the generosity of Joseph, but in terms of an understanding of parenting. That we have to be loving And we have to understand that children should be children. You can't expect a young child to eat with the same level of etiquette and proper behavior as an adult. That's again lechem lefi hataf, in accordance with children. The rabbis say in one place in the Talmud that if you don't have wine spilled in your house, like water, then that house is not included in the level of the house of blessing. Kol she'ein yayin, Amar Rabbi Chanin bar Papa, Eruvin 65. Amar Rabbi Chanin bar Papa, Kol she'ein yayin nishpach betoch beito kamayin, eino b'chlal bracha. If there isn't wine spilled in your house, the way water is spilled in your house, then maybe that house is not yet on the level of blessing. So some say it means, well, there should be so much wine flowing in your house that you don't care that wine, water, there's such an abundance. But I read in one book, I believe it was by a great rabbi who wrote on the beauty of Shabbat, because there's a custom on Saturday night, on Motzei Shabbat, in many communities they pour out the wine. They pour wine, the cup overflows, or some communities even
you have to fill
what
You fill it up until it overflows.
Overflows. Some people
that's the Havdalah,
yeah. Or the wine falls on the floor, or the wine falls on the table. And they quote this as some say it's kosi rivaya. King David spoke about how my cup floweth over. And some say no, it's a siman beracha. It's like, wow, look at this house, wine is flowing. And Rabbi Ryan wrote in his book, he said, no, it means if the people in the house, let's say a little water spills. So you don't get so excited when the water, thank God. I mean, we need a lot of water here in the Holy Land. May God open all the well springs of blessing tonight. But, generally a little water spills, no one gets too excited. But let's say some wine spills. Wine can be very expensive. But if children spill wine, so that's the way children eat. That's the way children drink. If you can notice on their shirt, if you can notice on their jacket, if you can notice on their face, the food that they've just consumed, so that's the way children eat. So he says, if your house is not the kind of house where wine flows like water, but you get so annoyed, so agitated when the wine spills, then eino b'chlal bracha. Then maybe you're missing a certain level of blessing. Maybe you're not appreciating the blessing of children. I think there are many, many people in the world who have very, very orderly tables, but so many of them are longing for children who would do the opposite of having a perfectly proper table. They would love to have food all over the floor and food all over the table, and, because that's a blessing. And the rabbis teach in Moed Katan, in tractate Moed Katan, there's a teaching of a great story connected to Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai. And there were two great rabbis, Rabbi Yonatan ben Asmai and Rabbi Yehuda ben Gerim. And they were visiting in the community of Rashbi, of Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai. And these were two outstanding rabbinic personalities. And Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai sent his son to receive a special blessing from these great rabbis. And they gave him several blessings. And each blessing was more difficult to understand than the previous one. And he came back to his father and he said, "You sent me for blessings, they cursed me." And one of the blessings they said to him, blessing in quotation marks, was, "May your table constantly be in disarray. May your table constantly be turned over. Liv valbal petorach. May your table be overturned." So he came back to his Abba and said, "That's a blessing. May bless me that everything should be in order. Everything should be proper." So Rabbi Shimon said to his son, "No, you don't understand the blessing. He was blessing you that your table should be filled with sons and daughters. So many children, and so many grandchildren, and so many so many children, and so many grandchildren, and so many great-grandchildren, and so many visitors, and so many cousins, and so many nephews and nieces. It shouldn't be in order. Who wants it in order? Live al bal b'torach. And he says it means bivanei uvnata. May there be a multitude of sons and daughters. That's the blessing. Leval bal b'torach. That it should not be. It'll be bilbul. You know, some people bilbul. Who wants bilbul? I want everything. So maybe the blessing of Joseph, and maybe that's the blessing to all of the families in the world, is that they should all be blessed with abundance, and there should be so much abundance, with a material blessing according to the children, and a psychological level of understanding the real needs of children. To understand that when children eat the way they do, when children behave the way they do, that's part of the blessing, and that's part of the way that God created children. May we learn to appreciate all of the children, and may Joseph, all of the Josephs in the world, all of those providing should provide enough food, lechem, lefi, hataf, in accordance with all of the children. Thank you so much for listening. Misha Berach, Avoteinu, Abraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Moshe, Aaron, David, Shlomo, Imoteinu, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, Leah, Uyivarech, Rapeh, Vichazek, Vitzar, Vishmar, Yemshich, Levarech, Rapol, V'chazek, Et Yirmiyahu, Ben Pri, V'nachamam, Bet Sarah, Shirel, Bat Lorraine, Elner, Rafan, Alehem, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Yimalei Rachamim Alehem, Lachlimam, Rapoltam, Lachzikam, Lachyotam, Yishlach Lehem Mehira, Refuah Shlema Ben Hashamayim, L'chol Ivreihem, L'chol Gidehem, B'toch Sha'ar Cholei Yisrael, Refuat HaNefesh, Refuat HaGuf, Hashta Bagalav Zman Karev and Omer Amen.
Amen.
Okay, so we have some food. I don't know. Happy birthday to you too.
Happy birthday.
No.
It was born on the first night of Hanukkah. What's the big day?
No, it's
Happy birthday to you. So we pray. Did everybody pray? You prayed, Yoshua. Where are you? Should we have a minyan?
I didn't pray.
Rav Adam, you prayed?
I prayed, but I can
Baruch
stay.
Atah Hashem.
We have a minyan.
No, we need 6 a day and daven.
Thank you, Ram.
I already davened too. But I'm
Thank you.
I can daven again. I mean, we daven because generally we do Mara.
How many people do we have?
Before the lights.
Yoshua, lead us. Yoshua, lead us in
Shita
Mara.
Katamon. I'm with
Yoshua,
the
please lead us in
Everything's wrong.
Yoshua, please lead us in Mara.
I don't know.
You can answer me. You can say yes.
Do we have
say
6
no.
a day and daven?
How about you davened already?
I know. It should
Wait.
be my worst sin. I prayed twice. like what'd you do wrong in this world? I prayed too much. Okay.
Do we have 6 at this day?
I'm sure we do.
Ruben, did you pray yet?
No, not yet.
Ruben, did you pray? I did, but I want to pray again.
Very good.
All right, Baruch, what about you?
I daven, but I you know.
What about Yoshua? Yoshua, what about you?
You mean to leave?
I didn't daven.
I didn't daven.
In the box outside. The shop. I would have driven the box outside.
Scream out, get to
I don't know what's going on. I'm asking Yoshua to answer this. Could someone raise their hand? Whoever did not pray or did not want to, wouldn't pray it?
What's the halacha? I can pray. I can for a minion.
No, you could. We need 6 a day to say
You need 6. Okay, you need
No,
6
six,
who
you
have
need six
you
for,
need 6 who have not yet prayed.
Okay, it's fine.
Okay.
Baruch.
I never had this myself.
You need 6. That's it.
Baruch.
Hanukkah.
Baruch.
Okay, oh, sorry.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvosav v'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel Chanukah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'asa nisim la'avosereinu vayavim hohem b'azman hazeh
בימים ההם, בזמן הזה.